Typical, isn't it? You wait ages for a new sort of like value, sort of like electric car to come along, and what do you know? Another one comes straight after it. Because as well as being here to drive the new Leapmotor T03, they're also launching this, their medium-sized SUV, the C10. Now, whilst the T03 pretty much has the small city electric city car market pretty much to itself, this one's got a bit more of a harder job at hand, because this is striking right into the heartland of where there's plenty of competition. Welcome to this week's road test review, welcome to the new Leapmotor C10, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's review of Leapmotor's new C10, I hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to drop in a little reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the video, if you enjoy it, make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think about the cars we review on the channel, such as the Leapmotor C10, and of course, on the AutoEV channel on the whole. So whilst we have been crying out for sort of like less expensive all-electric small cars, such as the Leapmotor T03, the last thing we really needed was another medium to large sized all-electric SUV slash crossover at between £35,000 and £40,000, because let's be honest, there's enough of them out there. But that's what they've given us, and that's what we have. But there's something about this one that might just be a little bit different to all the other things we've heard before. And again, they've used a sort of like a tagline here almost, that they're giving us a D segment sized SUV for C segment money. Again, nothing that we haven't heard before from a new Chinese brand, dare I suggest. But there is something more about this car that I think warrants a little bit of attention. But the big question I have is, why would you choose this over something, let's say, rather than say a Vauxhall Grandland or a Skoda Enyaq, or dare I suggest even over something like a BYD, which has already been established in the UK? Well, let's take a little deeper dive and find out. But before we move on, let's take a look at the main points of the new Leapmotor C10. So the C10 is the company's entry into the D segment SUV arena. The car features a 69.9 kilowatt-hour battery for a WLTP range of up to 262 miles. Just one level of specification will be available, offering a host of premium features as standard. It's powered by a single motor, delivering 218 horsepower. And it's priced at just £36,500 for the single model range. So you're getting a serious amount of car for your money. But let's be honest, that's nothing that we haven't heard before from the likes of Amoda and Skywell. And look how they turned out to drive. So what's going to make this one a bit different? Well, of course, the only way we can find out if it is or not is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, on a gloomy day in Sussex, is still the AutoEV one. Now, just before I get on with the styling, I just want to explain something to you about how some of these press launches actually work. Because a lot of the time we're asked to share cars, which in some respects isn't really any good for me because I've got to do filming. It's fine if you're a written journalist, a couple of you jump in together and off you drive and you have your notes and you think about it. But if you're filming, that's difficult to do with somebody else in the car. So I have to wait till the very end to take what's left, and they've given me this grey car. I think it's called Tundra Grey, which I think is quite nice in fairness, but on a grey day, against a white building where they've allocated some filming spot for me, it's probably not the best. But it did mean that I missed out on the lovely dark green that they've got over there and the darker grey. So I apologise, folks, but that's what we're left with, the grey. Anyway, the styling. Right, okay, well, let me just start by saying this. If you've watched the review that I've done of something like, say, the Amoda E5 and the Skywell BE11, which I have to say, didn't go down particularly well with me, that particular car. And I did say it was a car whose styling just looked generic. In fact, I said it was like a car that it reminded me of those, you know, those generic cars you see, those badgeless cars you see in car insurance adverts, you know, with it reminded me of one of those. There was an element of me when I started to look at this car and thought, oh, that's just the same. But actually, when you see it in the flesh, you start to see there's a little bit more cohesion in the design of this car. And I have to say, I quite like it. It's quite a handsome car. There's little elements of other cars in it, which you'll see as we go around it, which does seem to be the way with a lot of these Chinese brands. I will say that. And it was the same with the T03, wasn't it? You know, they're just reminding me of a few other cars. I think there's an element there of sort of like the older Mitsubishi Outlander. Is that just me? There's just something in those lights that you look at it and go, that does look a little bit like the old Outlander. But actually, overall, when you stand back and look at it, and as I say, when you see it in the dark green, it's a lovely, you know, it's a really sort of like quite a handsome looking car. And it's just nice, it's plain, and as I say, the design for me is cohesive. And I think it's quite nice. The only thing that just irks me a little bit is the big badge. I don't particularly like the Leapmotor badge, but you know, that's by the by. So of course, LED headlights there. You get, of course, you get the light bar. In fact, no, so is it a light bar? Yes, I think it is a light bar there. And this very neatly integrated front-facing camera down there. And then, of course, all the cooling is done down at the bottom there. So again, like most of these cars, so it gives it a nice smoothed over sort of like front end to the car. It's not a particularly tall car when it comes to the bonnet, but it is a tall car. And I'll go through the sizes with you when we go around the side, just so you get an idea of sort of like the sort of size of car that we're discussing here. Careful attention paid to aerodynamics, which helps with efficiency. So you get the nice air curtains at the side there that help take airflow right round the side of the car and then down the flanks of it as well. It's very smooth, you know, there isn't really anything sort of like extraneous on the car to sort of disrupt that airflow, which is obviously quite good. It's quite square-jawed, isn't it? You know, quite square-jawed and purposeful at the front, which is nice. And then you just get the kind of gloss black area around there where the lower fog lights are, and the neat sort of like number plate plinth there. I like this sort of like almost the clamshell style of bonnet that just bleeds over the edge of it, but there's nothing in here. There's no frunk, there's no fruit, front boot, whatever you want to call it. You know, there's nothing in there for that. But otherwise, as I say, when you see it in pictures, you go, it's maybe a bit bland in some respects. When you see it in the flesh, in a nice colour, you go, actually, that's not too bad. Right, so D-segment SUV we're talking here, 4.7 metres long. It's 50 mil longer than a Vauxhall Grandland and 19 millimetres taller. So that's the sort of size we're talking about. And I'm using the Grandland from Vauxhall with purpose as the example there, because bear in mind where Leapmotor fit. In other words, they're an alliance with Stellantis Group, so they're part of they're under the same umbrella as Vauxhall is as well. That's the reason why I'm using that. It's not the same platform. It's not the same platform, different car, but as I say, that's the sort of size of car and the market space that this car's playing into. Right, moving down the side, you can see it is more of that, dare I suggest, traditional style of SUV that we're looking at. You know, it's not sort of like a coupe style sporty one or anything fancy. It's quite plain again, like the front. They talk about sort of like 3 lines in the design. So of course you've got 1, 2, 3. You know, and that gives it quite purpose and gives it kind of purposeful. But as I say, there's no big fancy creases or slashes down the side of it. As I say, it's quite plain looking in some respects, but that's maybe not a bad thing. You know, sometimes less is more, if that makes sense, you know. Stand apart door mirrors. You get the sort of standout door mirrors on the door panel there. You get a nice little quarter light there, which helps with visibility. There's NFC lock, you know, you can touch the card on it and that locks the car and things like that. You get a little camera embedded there. There's another camera in there as well. 20-inch alloy wheels are standard on the car, okay? There is no options on the car. You literally buy the car, you pick your colour, the job is done. That's it. It's a very high standard specification, just one trim level, one spec, no options. That's what you get. I quite like that, in fairness, and as I say, when you see the level of equipment that's on the car as standard, you'll appreciate why. Gloss black roof rails. In fairness, as I say about the colour, it's quite nice in some respects, you know, with the contrast with this sort of like light, almost flat grey with the gloss black roof rails and the mirror and that little bit down at the bottom there. That's quite nice. So I do quite like that, in fairness. Maybe not so great against the white building, but there we go. Privacy glass on the back. Flush door handles that pop out, a bit like the Kia EV6, although look, doors don't go all the way underneath, so you've still got a muddy sill to get your trousers across. Never mind, can't have everything. But yeah, now we're going to get to the back now, and this is where I think it reminds me of another car with, dare I suggest, a slightly more premium badge than Vauxhall. Let me see if you can spot it. Is it just me, or can you see an element of Porsche Cayenne in this? Is it just my old eyes? Do I need to change the McGregories? Or is there a Cayenne lurking a little bit in there somewhere? Because I think there is. Anyway, there we go. Big roof spoiler, lovely high level integrated, high level brake light, I should say. Right, this is how you do a rear wiper, folks. Look, tucked right up in there. So it does have one, but if you want to leave a nice sort of like clean sort of like area here without sort of like a wiper jutting out there, Mr. Car designers, do what Leapmotor have done and tuck it right up in there. That's really nice. It's got one, but you can't see it until you look right up in there and it's there. So yeah, that's how you do a rear wiper on an SUV. And I'm glad it's got it. Of course, you get this beautiful light bar that goes all the way across, just like that. You get your C10 badge there, and of course, your Leapmotor badging there. There we go. Leapmotor, who are they? They're quite a new company in a lot of ways. 2015 they started as a tech startup, you know, across in China. But the rate of progress has just been unbelievable, and you've got to understand there's a slight difference between sort of like Leapmotor in China and Leapmotor International, I think they said it was, which is what Stellantis bought a 21% stake, I seem to remember they said, in Leapmotor, but they then formed a new company, Leapmotor International, of which Stellantis owned 51% of, and that's the bit that we're going to talk about later on in terms of supply, dealerships, warranty, part supply, which is really important. So they are a brand, they are the 9th Stellantis brand, although they're not wholly owned by Stellantis, but they are taking care of the important stuff which you as a customer are going to want to know about, because that's the important stuff for you guys, about who you're buying it from, the dealer you're buying it from, your warranty and how you're going to be looked after. And that is where I think the difference is going to come with these guys. Okay, right. Enough's enough, I'll get onto that a bit later on. Right, what do we think of the styling? I quite like it, I have to admit. It's quite nice. You know, it's not the best looking car in its class. It's far from the worst. It's, you know, you look at that Skywell B11 and I just wouldn't want to drive that around. I'd be quite happy to drive around in one of these. I think this is quite a handsome looking beast. It's all right. As I say, there's hints of other cars around it. I see a little bit of Mitsubishi at the front, I see a bit of Porsche at the back. And as I say, down the side, I like the fact that it's a big, proper, full-size SUV. But it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? It matters what you think, because you're out there buying cars. I'm not. I'm just getting, you know, the chance to come and drive them and review them for you. What do you think about it? Would it tempt you? Would you buy this over, say, a Vauxhall Grandland or a Peugeot 5008? Would you buy it over an Amoda E5 or a BYD or a Skywell? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Right, practicality. Oh, just before we move on, I should have mentioned the styling. Sorry, I got carried away myself. Reversing camera, just underneath there. So it's got that standard. Right, see, it's got one of those kick-activated boot releases, but I can never get them to work for me. And I spent ages looking for the button. I'm pressing and tiny little button just there. There you go. Electric tailgate standard. Takes its time to get up there, but then again, it takes my time to get up. 435 litres. Is what you get. So not biggest in class, certainly not smallest, but you know, with 435 litres. And then when you fold down the standard 60-40 split, it takes total capacity up to 1,410 litres. But it's quite a nice usable shape, isn't it? You know, so there's no intrusions into it, you know, from wheel arches or things like that. And your load entry is quite flat. So, you know, again, you get the nice kind of practical plastic kind of scuff plate there when you're sliding suitcases in, which obviously I don't have with me because I'm on the UK launch of the car. You know, so it doesn't really matter. So it's not going across a bit of chrome or, you know, like painted bits there. And because again, it's not that sort of coupe style of SUV. It's a bit more upright at the back. You've got a good usable space. There is some underfloor storage as well for cables, which is nice. So there's a good bit of underfloor storage. But anybody who's interested, no, it doesn't have a full-size spare wheel. You get your tyre inflation canister, and that's it. But there's other little compartments in there, you know, for things like high-vis jackets. You know, there's a warning triangle in there as well. But see, that's got a relatively deep well there. And you get nice little things like the hooks on the side there for just hanging shopping bags off. But no sort of like, you know, sort of like lashing points around it. That's a bit, you know, so you can't put a luggage net down. So, you know, and they're nothing sort of like either fancy, you know, like sort of like floor dividers or things like that, you know, to stop your Satsumas rolling around in the boot when you've been to Tesco's or Sainsbury's or whatever. So just be aware of that. But it's quite a usable boot size, I think, and in terms of the shape as well is good. And of course, as I say, remember, you've also got sort of like the roof rails as well. So if you're using it as holiday transport, then of course you've got the ability to put roof boxes on and so forth like that. But yeah, you know, in terms of, as I say, boot space, it's all right. It's what you expect for this size of car. And I don't think any family is going to be that disappointed with what it offers. Okie doke. in the back seat now. Fairly average boot size, but I'll tell you what, the back seat is massive. There's loads of room back here. This is really big back here. So I do get what they're saying about the size of the car, you know, the amount of space that you get inside the car, you know, for the money you get. This is absolutely fantastic. Now that seat has slid back from my driving position, so it's got, like, you know, that comfort access, you know, the seat slides back when you get out of the car, and that's slid back from where I had it. Look, I've got loads of room, so loads of leg room, loads of foot room. I can get my feet right under this. In fact, I can almost lounge back here. Plus you get this standard fit panoramic glass sunroof. You know, I can't remember what they said, it's like something like 2.1 metres square or something like that. There's, sorry, 2.1 metres of area. That just covers the whole roof of the car with an electric blind. So there's a load of light floods into the car. Plus you get some nice ambient lighting that's just underneath the door, sort of like tops of the doors as well, to give a bit more of a sort of like a nice kind of ambient feel in the car. I'll talk about materials and stuff when I go in the front of the car. But actually, in fairness, there's quite a lot to like about in here. There is a lot to like about this car. You get nice little bits of chrome, you know, like the door handles, the speaker grills just on the door handles there, and then through there, the little switches for the electric window switches. So there's just a bit of nice tactility about it, you know, and the materials, whilst this isn't sort of like genuine leather, it's, I'll talk about it, you know, because they use a different type of material which is sustainable, and there's a good talk of sustainability from Leapmotor, which I do like. You've got that in here as well. The seats themselves, nice and soft, you know, there's a really nice bit of soft cushioning there, and a good length of squab for a back seat bench, you know, so it just tucks you just underneath the backs of your knee there, and of course your integrated head restraints. So really good, I have to say. The rear seat space is brilliant. You've got a folded down armrest, but no cup holders in it. No cup holders, folks. However, you do have enough space in the door bins. Plus, there's cup holders or bottle holders at the back of the centre console there. So although they're not there, they are there. It's just a bit of a stretch forward, but at least you've got enough space down in the door bins, which are deep and good, and they'll take a bottle as well as some other bits. They're not lined on the bottom, they're just, you know, plain plastic on the bottom, but fair enough. There's mat pockets in the backs of the front seats, and there's two USB ports down there, a USB-A and a USB-C, and of course you get sort of, you know, face vents there. The armrest itself comes to a reasonable height, a nice height, so you know you've got a nice position back here. But as I say, it's the lounging space. I can't get over how much space there is back here. It's huge back here. You can barely see the front seats, let alone touch them, which is fabulous. It's what you want in a family SUV. And there's a completely flat floor across, as you'd expect. And again, it seems a lot of floor space. There does seem an awful lot of floor space. So if I was to sit in the middle, and I'm 5'8", I've got more than enough room to put my feet straight behind the console, but actually you'd put them just slightly to the side, and there's still enough headroom for somebody my height to sit in the back here. So it is a genuine 5-seat car, you know, that's very good. There's ISOFIX points, and despite being part of Stellantis Group, they are visible. You don't have to pull zips down. Thank you. But they're not covered by plastic or anything. You just got to jab your seat between the backrest and the seat squab. But I'd rather that than those silly zips. But I have to say, absolutely brilliant when it comes to rear seat accommodation as a family SUV. Fantastic Leapmotor. Well done. Right, up front. Well, this is different, isn't it? It's very Tesla / Polestar in the fact it's very minimal. You know, and it's just basically two screens. Good and bad, I'm going to suggest here now, but we'll get onto that just in a second. 10 point, let me just, sorry I made a note of that, 10.25 inch driver's display here, and then a 14.6 inch landscaped infotainment screen. Doesn't twist round, you know, like you get on the BYDs or anything. That's your lot, so it's very Tesla-like here. And then you literally just have the two thumb wheels on here, and then two little buttons sort of like around the side of it. 2-spoke steering wheel, 2 column stalks, electric window switches. That's it. Right. Okay. So first of all, It's very clean look, as I say, you know, in terms of like the exterior of the car, you know, sort of like minimal design, you know, very clean looking, you know, sort of like all the rest of it. However, it does mean everything is controlled through this screen. Absolutely everything. You've got to go into the screen to do anything. So, you know, climate control, and it is quite Tesla-like. You know, when you look at the sort of like the graphics and things, it's easy to see where maybe they've taken some inspiration from. You know, even controlling face vents and things like that, you know, it is done through here. Does it? I am saying that, yeah, it seems to be. Heated steering wheel button, you know, that's there. You know, and of course then the downside, we've got a driver monitor display just in there. So if you take your eyes off the road to use that, that's what you've got. Now, in fairness, it does have voice activation as well. So you can control a lot through the voice activation. You know, even things like, you know, heated seats, the Bluetooth music streaming, you know, radio stations, that type of thing can be controlled through voice activation. And the button for that is just on the steering wheel here. So I will caveat that with that. However, you know, and I do get, you know, they're not alone in this. Everyone's going down this route, you know, but it would just be nice to just have some buttons. I really like some buttons. Okay, there we go. Right, so anyway, you go in here, as I say, to control everything. So there's your settings menu. Do you know what I said to you? That was my driver position. I was in the back. It wasn't. I need to be a bit further forward. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, save. Thank you. So yeah, there's various different things you can do. So control the headlamps on and off. You know, there. Where else have we got? When you go back. Intelligent lighting, that type of thing, doors and windows, you know, for auto locking and that type of thing. Charging, so if you want to sort of like set up your charging schedule and things, you can do that through there. Your ADAS systems, your emergency lane keep assist. Are you sure you want to deactivate it? Yes, I'm sure. You know, intelligent speed assist. Are you sure you want to deactivate it? Yes, I'm sure. I'd just like a button to do that. That would be nice. Because you can't do it with the voice activation. You've got to go into the screen and do it, which is a real pain. And then driving. So again, your driving modes, they're all here as well. So you've got Eco, Comfort, Sport and Custom. You know, to adjust your brake regen, you've got to go into the screen and put it in here. And there's loads of different modes. So, yeah, it's frustrating, you know. I get the idea of doing it with the design, and as I say, in some respects, it's no different to what Tesla have done. It's no different to what Polestar have done. So, you know, I understand what they're doing, but it is, you know, again, too many steps to go and do stuff. Right. So that's that. So let me forget talking about that. At the moment, there's inbuilt Spotify, there's inbuilt navigation. At the moment, there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So if you're like me and you're a fan of that, there's none of that at the moment. The screen itself is quite nice, in fairness. It's quite bright. It reminds me a little bit of, you know, if you use something like, say, an Apple MacBook, you know, where it's got a really nice bright screen. This is sort of like a Dell laptop, you know what I mean, or an HP. It's that sort of, just that one rung down. It's very good though. It's, you know, I've seen a lot worse. You know, you look at the screen of, say, like the GWM and those things that just aren't quite as crisp. They're not quite as good, and they're a bit too fiddly. This is better. You know, so again, the sort of like the level of clarity that you get, the level of functionality on it is actually quite good. You know, it does seem fairly quick to respond to an input. You know, it's fairly decent that way. You know, when you go in there and you want to put in, I'm sure you've got inbuilt Spotify, which obviously I'm not logging into, but you know what I mean? If you want to get into your radio and stuff, it just seems a lot better. It's just the fact that everything has to be controlled through the screen that I have a bit of an issue with. Okay, that's that. The driver's display, so you get this 10.25 inch driver's display here, which again is quite bright. It's quite nice and bright, so the graphics are good on it actually. So, and again, this, because of the size of it and because of the slightly more kind of slightly squared off steering wheel, you do get a good view into that actually, and everything's very easy to read. So again, if you think about other Chinese brands, you know, Skywell, BYD, GWM, those kind of guys, you know, I'd say this is probably one of the better ones. being able to read instead of, so you get a big speed readout on the left with the gear or your transmission sort of like indication there, your distance to go, your battery meter down in the bottom left, and then over here is just a trip meter. And that's it, you know, and then you get this sort of little car pictogram there, which will be your ADAS systems, you know, for your lane keeping, guidance control and things like that. So it's not bad in that sense. As I say, it's very clear to you, very easy to see at a glance, you know, even on a sort of like a dull day, you know, a lot of light in the car, as I say, so there's not a lot of glare or reflection. Okay, it's dull today, but you know what I mean, you get the impression it would be still quite easy to read and things like that. So I do like that. The steering wheel itself, nice size of wheel, I like the shape of it. It will adjust for reach and for rake. The screen is attached to the dashboard, not the steering column, but I would suggest even most people, by the time they've adjusted everything, will still be able to see that at a relatively easy glance there. Wireless charging pad is here, and this also is, you know, when you put this key, again, quite Tesla Polestar like, isn't it? You know, you put the key on there to sort of start the car. There's storage in here. There's your user manual. That's quite deep enough in there, and that goes down in there. There is a glove box, he says, but I bet you it's, oh no, it's not, it's a button on the side there, but it's locked for some reason. Can't get into that. There's a glove box, and there's door bins, which will take a water bottle in them as well, and as you can see, you get the two cup holders there. There isn't a cover for them, anything, but there isn't really any needed. Plus you get storage underneath this console, which has a rubber mat on it, which is nice, stops things sliding about. Right, I did say I wanted to talk about the materials, and I have to say, I do like the materials in here. The car I keep mentioning here is because the car it keeps reminding me of is a Tesla. So if you've had, say, a Model Y, for instance, you know, sort of like, as I say, the design is very similar, and the use of materials is quite similar as well. You know, it's not leather, but it's not cheap plasticky stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's a nice softness to it in some respects, and the seats are quite spongy. If they had said that they had benchmarked the car against the Model Y, you could well believe it, because that's what it sort of reminds me of in here a little bit, in terms of the design, as I say, and the materials being used in here. Now, they've done a lot in terms of sustainability, so that because they're not using actual leather, you know, they're using this sort of like synthetic, I can't remember the actual name of it. Did I write it down? No. But what they're talking about is they've reduced their carbon emissions by 30% during the production of the interior materials. So, you know, and they're continuing to do that. They're continuing to look at ways of reducing it even further down. So, you know, there's a good talk of that. And again, it's one of the only Chinese brands that really discusses that, you know, quite prominently within their sort of like, you know, the press pack and things like that. So I do like that, and I think that's quite a big thing, especially, as I say, for younger buyers, for families who are quite conscious. You know, we're at a stage now, you know, where you're separating all your recycling out and stuff like that. You know, it's second nature to us. So to talk about stuff like that quite openly, I think, is a good thing. And in fairness, Leapmotor are doing that, you know. Nice bit of ambient lighting around here. Again, look at the column stocks. They're just like a Tesla. Do you know what I mean? That's what it reminds me of. There we go. The seats, as I say, are quite nice and comfortable. There's a good length of squab again. They are electrically adjustable, as you can see. You know, you've got up and back. There is a tilt. No, there isn't. No, there isn't a tilt adjustment. Apologies. It's just forward and back. Oh, that's interesting. Apologies, I didn't realise that. But in fairness, there's quite a bit of cushioning, just to sort of like cushion the back of my sort of like under thighs there, which is nice. And then, of course, up here you've got your panoramic roof blind. It's a fixed glass roof, so it doesn't open. And as I say, we discussed steering wheel and materials and stuff. Right, okay, so I'm not going to go on too much. What do I like about it? Well, as I say, I understand. I'm not going to say I like the minimalist design in some respects, but I understand what they've sort of modelled it on. I love the fact that they talk of the sustainability of the materials. I have to say as well, the build quality feels good. You know, everything feels very well screwed together. You know, you've got nice, you know, door handles. They've got quite a nice feel to them. There's a nice just spring on them. Don't feel cheap. Same with the window switches. Again, when you operate the window switches, they click nicely. You know, the buttons here, very Tesla-like, you know, with the thumb wheels moving them around. That feels good. The quality of the material on the steering wheel, the dashboard, the seats and the centre console, again, as I say, I like it. It feels good. There's heated seats as well. That's standard on the car. There's also ventilated seats as standard. Remember what I said? Hugely high specification of car. This is all you get. This is it. So you get heated front seats, you get cooled seats as well. You get 360-degree parking camera. Oh, just put it up there. Look at that, you know. A 360-degree camera on the car. That's excellent. There's inbuilt Spotify. Okay, as I say, you don't get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The big talkie over-the-air updates on the car as well, so it's geared all for that. So all of that stuff is very, very good, and you know, you have to commend it for that. However, just the massive concentration of everything being controlled through here, I do find quite annoying. You know, as I say, especially as what did I do there? Well, I don't know what I did there. Especially as you have to go into it in so many different layers. There's so many layers to go down through it to make sure you get to the right bit. It's just not as easy to use as, say, if there was a couple of buttons. You know, and I'm not trying to be old-fashioned. I'm not trying to be like, you know, he's going to say that because he's an old duffer. I'm not. I'm just saying, when you're driving, it's quite distracting to have to use all that. And then, of course, you've got that tells you off if you do use it. So, there we go. Good and bad, yeah? Make your own mind up about it. Very well equipped, very well built, nice use of materials, clear screens, easy to see at a glance, but too much concentrated on those screens, personally for me. We'll leave it at that. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned about the car is the app that you get with the Leapmotor app. Now, lots of cars obviously have apps, you know, where you can control certain functionality of the car through it. And this is the thing we don't really talk about a huge amount on AutoEV, but maybe I should. Let me know what your thoughts in the comment section. Well, I should talk a bit more about the apps and, you know, what they can do and what they can't do. Is there a section in the road test review you'd like to see about that? Let me know your thoughts. Right, but anyway, it has quite a good app in it, you know, and obviously you can control certain functionality from the app, you know, sort of like you can start charging the car, you can schedule charges through it, as you can with a lot of electric cars. I'm not saying this is any different, but it's nice to see it. You know, so you get the app, you can control, schedule charging, you can lock and unlock the car, you can start the air conditioning, and trust me, once you've had that facility to do that, I've got it on my Genesis long-termer and my previous BMW, to be able to sit there in the morning, a cold morning, having a cup of coffee in the house and switch on the heated seat and heated steering wheel and get the car up to temperature. Absolute godsend, it really is. So you can do that, and in the absence of connectivity on the Leapmotor app, you can lock and unlock the car through Bluetooth from your phone. So that's quite handy. Right, battery. Okay, one size fits all. 69.9 kilowatt hour battery. Not best in class. Don't get me wrong, there are cars that have more. You have a WLTP range, he says. He's written it down. 262 miles. Fairly average, but then you've got to think about the price of the car. Okay, so whilst there are cars, you know, like Tesla, the higher battery level, Skoda Enyaq, those kind of things, but they are more money, in fairness. So at the price point, you've got to have that in your mind rather than the size of the car, yeah? Okay, 262 miles. What's disappointing for me is the charging speed. DC charging, 84 kilowatts, that's it. They quote a 30 to 80% time of 30 minutes. That's all very well and good, but we use 10 to 80%, and 10 to 80% on this is 44 minutes. So that's a downside, okay? There is a downside with that. If you're charging up from your home wall box, you know, your 7 kilowatt wall box, then it's going to take 11 hours and 15 minutes. So yeah, charging isn't really a strong point with this car, but you do get a heat pump as standard. Right, out on the open road. 218 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds. So it's about right, you know, it's about class average. In terms of power, performance, and what you would expect for this type of car. And it doesn't feel sluggish, you know, it does feel like, you know, when you put your foot down, you know, something happens, and it does sort of like get up to speed quite quickly. It's the weight of the controls that I would suggest, first of all, where I'm not quite so sure of. You know, there is you know, you can change the modes of the car. There are 3 driving modes, as you'd expect. You know, Eco, Comfort, Sport, as usual. In the Sport mode is probably actually where I think it feels at its best, because if you go into the Comfort mode, the steering feels quite light. The steering's overly light, I think. Good for manoeuvrability, you know, in terms of if you're going around car park, or, you know, at the Sainsbury's or Tesco's or the school car park, whatever, that's fine. But actually out on the open road, there's a slight disconnected feel with it. So actually what you want to do is add in some weight to that, which means you've got to be in the sport mode. And that's no bad thing, because it's not, you know, the throttle response from the car when you're in the sport mode is actually okay. You know, you've got a nice sort of like, you know, you can use the throttle pedal if you like. You know, you can actually sort of like, you know, apply a bit of sort of like, you know, oomph to it, and it does move you along the road quite nicely. So I can't really complain with regards to it in that sense. Sorry, just coming out of a tight junction there. And then I think I want to go this way. Yes, I do. So that's good. The brakes, however, the brakes, I tell you what, they're sharp. You've really got to get used to the brakes on the car, because you just brush the pedal and it stops. It's very tricky. I was manoeuvring the car around for filming earlier, and it's a very tricky car to manoeuvre. You know, getting used to it, I suppose. You know, there's no doubt about that. But you know, you just look at the brake pedal and the thing stops. You know, and I don't mean as in the brakes are powerful. I just mean as in the pedal's really sharp. Right. Now we get to the stuff that I have to admit I'm a little bit disappointed with. The ride quality. It's not that great, okay? Now don't get me wrong, there are worse cars than this. But, you know, on broken surfaces, which let's be honest, we get a lot of in the UK, it is constantly jittering around. You can constantly feel it, just... It's, you know, unless you're on the absolute billiard table of a surface, you can feel everything. You can just feel the suspension chattering away, and it's just a little bit, you know, it's that constant irritation. It's like having a child in the car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's like that. It's just constantly chattering away to you, and it's just, it's quite annoying. The other thing that I find very annoying is that you can't change a lot of the systems on the move. So for instance, and this is to do with this screen again, you know, so you want to go into your settings to change lane keep assist, take lane keep assist off. You can't when the car's driving. So if you get in it and you start off and you go, I forgot to turn that off, tough, you've got to stop. Can't do it when you're moving. What's the point of that? So you've got to stop the car, turn it off. And then it's the speed limit, intelligent speed limit assistance. Where is it? Here. You go into that. Are you sure you want to turn it off? Yes, I'm sure. You know, again, it's too... And then that starts beeping at you. So it's like that GWM Aura 03. You know, if you take your eye off the road too much, and it really beeps at you. It really tells you off. So that's disappointing. You know, and again, from the likes of, you know, and I get this is not built by Peugeot or Vauxhall or Citroën, but it is part of Stellantis Group. You know, they are saying that, you know, this is a brand under their umbrella. I'd have thought they would maybe have had more of an input in it. Now, maybe that's going to be something that comes along as an over-the-air update later on, because the car gets, you know, can get a lot of over-the-air updates. You know, it does receive over-the-air updates, so maybe it can do that. But that's quite annoying. The other thing is, when you go into the driving mode, he says, one pedal driving. Nope, not when you're driving it. So you can't alter the brake regen when you're driving the car. That's madness, surely. You know, because, you know, you're out on the open road like this, like I am here, you know, out in the, like the wilds of Sussex and stuff. You know, and I don't like one pedal driving out here. I quite like, you know, being able to just stop the car on my own, use the brake pedal, that's fine. But maybe when you're in town, you think, well, that'd be quite handy to have, you know, that one pedal driving. I don't really think about it. You know, it'd be nice just to be able to flick it on. So not only does it not have different levels, you can't actually move it from one stage to the one level that it has when the car's moving. Really frustrating, that. And as I say, there's just so much stuff to go through, you know, like changing, you know, automatic wiper sensitivity adjustment. You know, why is that buried in a screen? Why can't that just be on the column stock? So, you know, I'm trying to be positive about the car, and there is a lot to be positive about in some respects, you know, because actually, you know, the seats, as I say, are quite comfortable. You sit really high in the car. There's a good visibility. You know, it's easy to place on the road. It's easy to drive, you know, as I say, round about town, you know, for a big SUV, and it does feel like a big SUV in a good way. What's that? That's because I've taken my eyes off the road. That's because I'm talking to you. See? Okay, you're not going to be doing that. You know what I mean? You're not going to be talking to camera. But that's the type of thing I mean. You know, I know what I'm doing. You know, I'm 50 odd years old. I've been driving for, you know, 30 odd years. I know what I'm doing. Stop it. So, as I say, there's good stuff I like about it a lot. You know, the seats are comfortable. I like the fact you really, even when it's in its lowest position, you know, you still get this really big, you know, commanding driving position. The window line is quite nice because it's quite low, you know, so again, you know, your side view, your peripheral view around the car, you do get, you know, quite a nice view around it. It's easy to place on the road. You know, when you look round, you can see the back of the car. You've got these little quarter lights here, you can see through them. So there's good visibility about it. That's good. The seats, you know, they are quite comfortable. Bit spongy, which doesn't help with the ride quality being as fidgety as it is, because you do find yourself bouncing like that quite a lot. But there's no lumbar support on them. I was searching for that. There isn't a lumbar support, which is a bit odd. So just make sure you are comfortable in the car if you are driving it or taking it for a test drive. So all of that is good. You know, all the equipment stuff is good. You know, it's quite, as I say, this nice driving position. You know, you sit there and then it frustrates you with loads of stuff like that. And you can't change things unless you're actually stopped. Who thought of that? That's what I mean. So, whilst there is a lot to like about it, there's also a lot to get frustrated with as well. That being one of them. That being one of those things. Right. So as I say, the suspension's a bit jittery. The steering's overtly light unless you're in the sport mode. So that is one thing to be aware of. That doesn't change the suspension, by the way. Sport mode, it doesn't have adaptive dampers or anything. You know, it doesn't make the car, you know, sort of like ride more firmly because you're in the sport mode. That's the standard suspension. That's just it. You know, obviously it's got 20-inch wheels, which won't help either. The steering, as I say, you have to be in the sport mode unless it's just too light otherwise, I think. And as I say, that's fine for manoeuvring around town or car parks and great, but when you're open road, you've got to be in that sport mode. The weight of the controls, I don't really necessarily have a problem with that. You've really got to watch those brakes though, unless you're in that one pedal driving mode. And as I say, you don't really want that when you're up on the open road. You want it to be able to coast. You don't want it to be constantly on the power, because that's an inefficient way to drive. You want it when you're round about town, you know, or in stop-start traffic. So the fact you can't change that unless you physically stop the car, I think is a really bad thing. I don't think that's a good thing at all. So that's annoying, okay? So it's a real mixed bag. It's a real mixed bag. There's, you know, it's not, I want to be clear about this. It's not, when you drive something like, say, the Skywell BE11, it's, you know, which is just awful to drive, I think. You know, it's just to the point, I just didn't like it at all. You know, very, very poorly judged controls, very poorly judged, you know, feeling completely disconnected from the accelerator and stuff like that. It's not that. But it isn't at the same level of, say, something like the Vauxhall Grandland, or, you know, the Peugeot E3008, or you know, or the Kia EV6 or cars like that. Not even close in that sense, you know. But it isn't all bad. I hope I've made that clear. There is quite a lot to like about it, but there's so much frustration about it as well. And it's such a shame, because I really thought that this could be the one. This could be the sort of like the Chinese brand, you know, with being part of Stellantis, that I was going to sit there and go, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. It's not going to take a lot to fix, You could almost imagine things like this could be changed at a facelift, a midlife update or whatever. I could see that. But as it stands at the moment, it's not as good as it should be. Right, price. Well, that's nice and easy. £36,500. That's it. Job done. Pick your colour, pay a check, walk away. That's all you have to do. No options on the car. You just, as I say, choose your colour. That's it. Very high specification as standard. Heated and ventilated seats, panoramic roof, 20-inch alloy wheels, heat pump, vehicle to load. Forgot to mention that. It gets vehicle to load as well. Huge amount of space for the car. You know, all the safety tech around it, you know, lane keep assist, all that kind of stuff. All included, okay? So you don't have to worry about all that. So in terms of the brand, they're using the word value. They're not saying value for money, they're saying value in the sense that what you're getting is a huge amount for the money that you're paying. And in some respects, I have to agree with that. I can't really knock them from that point of view. So £36,500, that's all we need to discuss. We don't need to discuss any more than that. 4-year warranty with the vehicle, okay? Which is quite good. Now here's the thing about this. I want to discuss a little bit more about Leapmotor, okay? And I had to write a lot of this down. Now obviously if you're watching this, you know, sort of like, you know, as a video in a few months' time or in a few years' time, then obviously this might not be relevant, but it's important to discuss now at the launch of the brand. So as I say, they don't want to establish it as the cheap brand of Stellantis. That's not what they're interested in doing. They don't want it to be seen as a cheap brand. They want it to be seen as offering value. And again, not value for money, value. That's important. So it's the 9th brand in the under the Stellantis umbrella. But remember, as I say, it's a joint venture between Stellantis and Leapmotor. Stellantis own 51% of Leapmotor International. Dealerships. This is the important one. So by the time the car launches on 1st of March 2025, they have 44 retailers in place in the UK, okay? By the end of the first half of 2025, that'll be up to 60. And by the end of 2025, it will be 80, and that's national. And a lot of these dealerships are, because it's going to be tied in with other Stellantis brands. So your local Vauxhall dealer, for instance, may also be a Leapmotor dealer. Your local Fiat dealership may also have Leapmotor as well. So if you've got one of those other brands, if you've been driving around in sort of Vauxhalls for the last 20, 30 years, and you've got a good relationship with your dealer and quite fancy changing, then of course you're not moving anywhere else. You can still stick with that dealer that you know and love because they're taking on Leapmotor. And the interesting thing as well about this is in terms of part supply, which is a huge consideration when you think about a new brand establishing itself in the UK. So again, the likes of Skywell, Amoda, those kind of guys, you know, there's nothing really there, although they talk about it. You know, these guys have already got that in place because Stellantis already have all the systems, all the distribution, all the networks, all the computer systems already in place. They're just adding Leapmotor onto their database. That's it. So there's nothing to worry about from that point of view. So hopefully it's building confidence in consumers that whilst it is another new Chinese brand, it is a brand that's falling under the umbrella of a well-established group that you know and maybe already use. So that has to be thought about when we talk about the pricing section. The other thing as well is in terms of safety, the car has received 5 stars in the Euro NCAP safety testing. That might be an important consideration for you when you're thinking about the car. And as I say, in general, I think the build quality is probably the best I've seen from one of these brands. It's certainly a lot better than Skywell, and I'd say it's better than Amoda. It's nearly, you know, BYD is good as well, but I think this is actually pretty good. So there's a lot to like here in terms of that. And in terms of running costs, as I say, you know, 4-year warranty, no extras to consider. You know, whilst I say I'm not going to sit here and say £36,500 is cheap, it's not. You are getting a lot for that £36,500 though. And I think that's the difference with this car as opposed to some of the others we've reviewed. Right, competition. So this is the big bit, okay? This is the bit where, as I said right at the start, if you're thinking of competition for the small T03 city car, You know, you could write in the back of a fag packet. You know, this here we've got to think about, because as I say, there is a huge amount of cars that's available to you in this market sector. And I'm not suggesting they all start at similar money. I'm not suggesting they all give you the same amount of car or the same amount of equipment for your money, but they're still going to be within your radar if you're thinking about this sort of medium-sized D-segment SUV family style of car, especially when it comes to electric ones, because there's plenty of them out there. I'm going to start with the two that we need to mention, I think, first, because they're two that have obviously come to the UK in the last year, and they've got to be under consideration because they're new Chinese brands, in the same way that Leapmotor is. And that is, of course, the Amoda E5 and, of course, the Skywell BE11. So from the point of view of those, competition, those are two cars I'm going to mention first. So, you know, that's the thing. Now we move on to sort of like the cars that we see from established brands, and given the fact that Leapmotor is part of Stellantis group, we've got to mention their cars first. And the one that I mentioned first, I think, is the Vauxhall Grandland. I really like the Grandland. I think that's a good car. You're getting an awful lot of car for your money with the Grandland. It starts under £40,000, remember, as does this, and it's a Vauxhall. So again, it's a familiar brand name. It's a big car. There's a lot of space inside it. It's well equipped, and I think Vauxhall have to be commended because their pricing structure and where they're moving with their pricing and sort of like price parity between electric, hybrid, combustion engine, all the rest of it, they are leading the way. I really do think that. So the Grandland is the first car from within the Stellantis group that I want to mention. A slightly smaller car, but I still think if you're looking at a electric family car, you need to consider, and I think does offer really good value for money, even in comparison with this, is the Renault Scenic, the winner of our best medium-sized family car in the AutoEV Awards in 2024. Brilliant car, fabulous to drive, great looking thing. Tiny bit smaller than this, doesn't offer the same amount of space inside, don't get me wrong, and you know, only it's sort of like a mid-spec model, but in terms of charging, in terms of range and things like that, it is a bit better. So you've got to consider that as well. So there is that. What else are we looking at? Skoda Enyaq. The new Skoda Enyaq starts under £40,000 as well. Again, admittedly, not as well equipped, but in terms of space, huge amount of space. That's a big, big car that you're getting a lot of car, physical car for your money. Ford Explorer. Okay. Not the best in class, but you know, again, a familiar brand name. And if we're talking about, as I say, you've built a relationship with your Ford dealer over the years and you're moving into electric cars for the first time, you know, that's got to be on your radar too. And of course, if you're looking at the Explorer, you've got to think of, say, the Volkswagen ID4, because obviously it sits on the Volkswagen MEB platform. So, and we've also talked about the Enyaq, so why would you not consider an ID4? Peugeot E3008, another Stellantis car. You know, again, that's a car, very stylish looking. Peugeot looking really push up market. A lot of nice premium design in the car, premium materials and things like that, and a lot of space inside it. So that's a car to consider. Kia EV6. How can we not mention the Kia EV6? A brilliant car, fabulous car. Probably one of the best driver's cars in the class. That's the one I like as a driver's car. Not quite as spacious, but in terms of style, not a lot to touch that. And of course, Hyundai Ioniq 5. That's got to be mentioned as well. Nissan's Ariya, that's a car I keep sort of forgetting to mention, and I shouldn't. It's a great car. The Ariya's a brilliant car. That's quite spacious inside. Nissan aren't having a great time at the moment, so maybe that's putting the wobbles on you thinking about going for an Ariya. But if you are confident enough that they're going to be around, the Ariya's a car that's worth considering. So make sure you do consider that one. Basically, what I'm trying to say is there's quite a lot of cars to consider under £40,000. This sort of size of car. As I say, I'm not suggesting they all offer the same amount of equipment or the same amount of space, but in terms of brand names, in terms of maybe what you feel comfortable buying, you've got quite a choice. So here's what we like, and also what we don't like about the new Leapmotor C10. Well, we like its design, the space on offer, the value that it offers, the materials used in the interior, and in our opinion, it's probably the best of the new Chinese brands to gain consumer confidence thanks to its alliance with Stellantis. We don't like. Well, we find the EV architecture only average. There's too much focus on the screen and too many things are buried in there. It has an unsettled ride quality. The steering lacks feel in the normal mode, meaning you have to be in sport mode to gain some confidence in bends. And you can't turn on and off certain safety systems whilst on the move. The electric car world has seen a lot of opportunities for new Chinese brands to come into the European market. And there's a lot more going to come. And dare I suggest, some will last and some won't. Of the ones we've seen so far, Omoda, Skywell, to name but two, I think Leapmotor are probably the ones that I have the most confidence in. And that's probably in part to the fact they have this alliance with the Stellantis group. And that should give consumers such as yourself confidence that they're going to be there to stay. And it does offer a huge amount of value. And that's the word that keeps cropping up with this brand. They're talking about offering value, not value for money, just value. And that's a very distinctive thing. Is it a good car? Yes and no. There is a lot to like about it. I think it's very good looking. I think it's very well equipped. I think it's huge in the back. In terms of a family car, there's very little can touch it in terms of, you know, space for the kids and the dog in the back and whatever. So there's a lot to like about that. And, you know, there's a nice driving position. It offers a huge amount of equipment for the money as well. But in a lot of other respects, it is just average. And that's the thing. In this marketplace, when there is so much choice, being average isn't really good enough. You have to stand out. You have to be exceptional. And whilst in some respects it does stand out for offering that value, in all other ways, in terms of the way that it drives and the way that it makes you feel when you're driving it, average probably just doesn't cut it for me. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's video, then of course make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the new Leapmotor C10. Does it tickle your pickle? Would you rather have one of these in a Vauxhall Grandland or a Skoda Enyaq or a Skywell BE11? I'd have one over that, certainly. So let me know your thoughts down below. Now remember, if you're a social media buff, give us a follow there, because we're across all the platforms, all of them, you know, Facebook, you know, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok even. So please give us a follow there, because that certainly does help us. And remember, if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, might not be a new Leapmotor C10. Maybe you're thinking about, I don't know, a used Kia Niro, or, you know, a Kia EV6, or a used Skoda Enyaq, but you need to know all there is to know about the older cars. How do you find out? Well, that's simple. Stay on the AutoEV homepage on the YouTube channel. At the top there, you'll see a little magnifying glass, and if you type the name of the car that you're interested in there, then what it will do is it will make sure that it will bring you up the road test review that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car. And that, folks, as always, is the AutoEV one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I'll see you again soon.